right, good evening, everyone, and it's good to have you all joining us tonight for our special Father's Day live conversation. And I must say that today has been a very beautiful, or not just beautiful, a wonderful day for us all as fathers. I always say that this is the only day in the year that as fathers we are allowed to put our feet up and let our wives do all the work. And I must say that I must say that I have been spoiled today. We had a wonderful morning service, and then after the service, my wife and the kids, we all went out for a beautiful meal. But I need to share this with you because I don't know about you, but I got this lovely Father's Day card from my two boys, Daniel and Michael. And one of the cards, they made this, and I don't know if this looks like me at all, but you can see that. And it's called the Super Dad, and it's lovely. And one of the cards as well that I was given, just going to read that to you. And it says there, it says, "Dear Dad, no one could ever be a better dad than you. Happy Father's Day. Lots of love, Daniel and Michael." I mean, it really did make my day. And when I was getting ready this morning in the bathroom, my youngest son, Michael, just walked up to me and he said, "Happy Father's Day, Dad." And the next thing he did was, it really did touch my heart. He placed his hand on me and he said, "Dad, I pray that you live very long." Now, that is... Yeah, that is a 7-year-old, and I must tell you, I shouted the biggest amen I could muster. You know, yeah, that is, you will live very long, and it's such a great privilege for us as fathers, really, for God to put us in a position to look after these little ones, and that God has put in our lives. So it's wonderful that we can come together as fathers and give back to our communities, our churches, and to our friends as well. So if you're joining us, we just want to say that you're welcome to our Father's Day special live conversation. And I've got with me tonight, it's a full house I've got tonight, such wonderful gentlemen and lady. And they are going to discuss with me tonight on fathers as influencers. Fathers as influencers. We know that the world we live in now is quite big on influence. We have social media influencers, those that put out YouTube videos, and they've got millions of followers. But the question is, as fathers, how can we really leverage our influence in our generation and, of course, affect the lives of our children, affect the church that God has put us in, affect our communities and all those around us? So it's something that we really need to look into tonight as we discuss. So I'm going to introduce the panel tonight, who are going to be talking to us. And I'm going to start with Dr. Adura. Adura is someone that I've known for a good number of years. Now I call him the prof. So Adura, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Pastor. Pastor is also my father in the Lord. Okay, so he has influenced me on many levels also. So there we go. My name is Adura Banke-Thomas. I am a father of two beautiful children, Morojure and Mujeri, and I'm married to my wife Shola. I'm a medical doctor by training, and I'm a lecturer at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Lived in Liverpool before, and now I live in Stafford in the United Kingdom. Thank you. Happy Father's Day, everyone.
That's great. Yeah. All right. And the next person there is actually, she's the only lady on with us tonight, and you might be wondering what is she doing, but I think it's good to have a lady join us so she can bring something different, a different perspective to our conversation, because at times, as men, we think we know what it means to be a father, but a lady might be looking and say, "Really, is that what you think? I'll tell you who a real man or a real father is." So Dineo, my friendship with her goes a very long time. We went to the same school, London School of Theology, when I was doing my theological training in London. That was where I met her. She's been a wonderful friend over the years. And so, Dineo, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
I'm Dineo. I am a mom to two beautiful children under the age of 7. It's hard work, but it's worth it. Um, and yes, so my professional career is actually as a financial advisor. So even though my degree was in theology, just the same as Okey, I didn't end up in the ministry. I ended up in the professional finance field, which I thoroughly enjoy. But yes, I'm so grateful to be here this evening to give my input as well into this important topic.
All right. Thank you, Dineo. And of course, we've got Pastor Fola. I always call him one of the best pastor friends in Liverpool. And our friendship has been going on for almost 10, 11, going to 11 years now. And he's such a wonderful brother. And for anyone who doesn't know who Pastor Fola is, Pastor Fola, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, my very good brother and friend. Pastor Okey, I share that sentiment, same sentiments deeply. I will say this, our friendship dates back to pre-Pastor Okey, before he became a father.
Exactly.
we share in common 2 sons. It seems like everybody in the house has 2. Well, maybe when we move to the next speaker, it might break the record.
Actually, it's actually true. Adura, you've got 2 children. Dineo have got 2. Pastor Fola has got 2. And our next guest, you'll find out if he's got 2. But go on, Pastor Fola.
Well, privileged to be a father to 2 boys, 22 years old and 18 years old. Watching them grow, and in all sincerity, they are my benchmark to gauge if I'm really doing what I should do as a father. As Pastor Okey said, I lead a church here with my wife in Liverpool, Love Assembly. I'm an engineer, just like Pastor Okey, by qualification. I also happen to be a qualified teacher, so I've taught also in a college here in Liverpool. And I'm actually currently writing a book, which hopefully one day should be published. It's called What Fathers Should Teach Their Children.
Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. I know you wrote a book a while ago, but I didn't know about this new one. But that's great. That's great. So you've got a lot to tell us tonight then about what fathers should be doing.
I'm not telling you what's in the book so that you can buy
it. All right. All right. So thank you. So our next guest is Ugochukwu. So Ugo as well, being a wonderful friend. Our friendship dates back to secondary school. So just to give you an idea of how long we've known each other. Before we came online, I said to Pastor Fola and the others, I said, Ugochukwu knows my secret, all my secrets. When we were childhood friends, he slept in my house. He knew me as an unbeliever when I wasn't. He knew when we were scaling the school fence together, going for nightclubs and parties and things. But praise God for the blood of Jesus that cleanses us from all sins. And so, Ugo, just tell us a little bit about what you do. And
I'm excited. I'm very happy to be part of this panel. Okey, of course, like he said, he's like a brother to me, and we grew up from secondary school up to this time. My background is in banking. I worked with JP Morgan in the US, and then I came to Nigeria and worked for Access Bank as an investment banker as well. And I run my own business. I run a consulting firm. I do business management. I help companies set up processes, and I also groom entrepreneurs to build systems and processes in their business. Currently, I'm in Ghana. I have a business summit I just finished yesterday, and I am a father of 2. So I have not broken the record yet. And I can tell you this, that the greatest thing that have ever happened to my life is the opportunity to raise a person from birth. I mean, I was given the opportunity to make an impression to someone who has no bias. That is a privilege any human being can have. Some people you want to influence or try to impact their lives. They already have biases about life, but these children came blank, and I was the person that was designed to set a path for them. So being a father is a fundamental privilege any man can have.
That's great. He's already preaching. You can see that. Yeah, that's yeah. Thank you for that, Ugo. And it's like I said, we are looking tonight at fathers as influencers, and just to get into this conversation, it's Father's Day, and we want to start by asking that basic question. Now, it sounds basic, but I'm sure that we're going to have different interpretations or explanations to who a father is. Fatherhood, is it as a result of your biological functions? You've got a son, or you've got a daughter. We all have got children. Now, does that make one a father? That's the big question that we need to ask tonight. And who is a father, or what makes one a father? So we're going to start with Adura. Maybe he would open this conversation for us. So Adura, over to you. Who is a father?
Thank you very much, Pastor Okey. That question really sounds like it should be very simple. And I guess, Cambridge Dictionary kind of came up with a very simple answer to it. And it said, a father is a male parent. And I was like, what? Really? That's it? That's all it takes to be a father? Just be a male parent? When I tried to kind of search further on this, they expanded on it saying, a father is a male parent of a child. And besides these paternal bonds that they have between the father and the child, the father may also have parental, legal, and social relationship with that child that carries with it certain rights and obligations. And then I asked myself again, no, I feel like being a father is a lot more than that. And so I said, you know what, maybe the societal definition of who a father truly is not going to help me. I need to think about this a bit more and think about this a bit deeper. And I realized that who a father is actually in the word called father. And for me, if fathers are the holy ones, call it earthly example of his righteousness. I said, take it again. Fathers are the holy one's earthly example of his righteousness. Fathel. And I think that's really who we are. We are, the same way God is our father, and we emulate and we try to live in line with how he's lived, is exactly how a father should be to their own children, being that earthly expression, that earthly example of God's righteousness. I'll leave it on to others to also speak then. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Adura. You've raised a lot of points on there, but let's go to Dineo. Dineo, what do you think? Who is a father? I mean, the only lady on the panel tonight. Who is a father? Yeah.
Who is a father? Gosh, I think for me, it's definitely not just biological. I have been blessed with a stepfather who I have known since I was 4 years old. And to me, he is father. He has played that role in an exceptional way in my experience. So for me, firstly, it's not just biological, but also what Dr. Banke-Thomas was saying in terms of being father being an earth example of his righteousness. I'm also a single parent, so I'm having to play both roles most of the time. And so if a father is an earthly example of his righteousness, as a mom, I do that, I try my best to do that, implement that day in and day out. I play that role. So I guess if I leave God out the picture, it's a very complex, for me personally, it's a very complex answer to give. But ultimately, as a single parent, as an individual who hasn't had their biological father play a role in their life, for me, who sets the standard for fatherhood is God himself. That's always been the go-to for me. And I have to be honest in saying that in Christendom, I think this is an area that we neglect, really. We focus so much on Christ and we forget that actually Christ came to reveal somebody. And who Christ said he came to reveal was the Father. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. And so for me personally, when I look at who is the Father, who is a father, what does a father look like? My understanding of fatherhood is from God himself. It's through the God that Christ came to reveal. And gosh, we learn so much from that in itself, and I'm sure we'll unpack that shortly. But yeah, that's my understanding of it.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That's a lot coming through there. And I'm sure that we are picking things. And for those who are watching us, you can put your comments, who you think a father is, in the comment section as well. Hopefully that would help us as we discuss. And we haven't heard from Pastor Fola and Ugo. And I would like to remind our guests, when you are not speaking, please, if you can, mute your mic. That would be great, just to avoid any feedback coming through. And only unmute yourself when it's time for you to speak or say something. All right, so let me go to Ugo. Who is a father? Who is a father? Can you tell us who a father is, please?
Well, thank you. Okay, that's a very humbling question to answer, because you have a tremendous responsibility to bear that title as a father. But however, I still agree strongly that a father may start from being a biological male who is saddled with a natural responsibility to raise your children. It may start with that. So there is some kind of bond that comes with being the one that started the journey of that individual. However, that in itself does not really, suffice to, communicate the entire implication of being a father. However, fathers are people that take the responsibility to help individuals to live the life that God has purposed for them. I strongly believe it's much more about accepting responsibility to play the role of a parent, whether or not you are the biological male parent, as the Oxford Dictionary described it by Dr. Banke. So it is, I have, you played a role in my life, okay, you're my friend, but I received a lot of direction being in your life. I received a lot of guidance living in your house. When we were young, of course, I left the house early. I was in Owerri with you. I was coming to your house as though it's my house. So without you being much older, without you being my blood brother, you represented a model to me. And your mom also played a major role in my life. So yes, it's a male parent, but it's much more than just being a male parent, because there's some people who has given birth to children who never saw those children, who never added any type of influence in their life. But those children, for some reason, still turned out well because someone else stepped in and guided them. So I think yes, it is male parent, but however, that does not diminish the fact that someone can step into your life and fully play a role. But whoever brings a child into this world and denies that child that fatherly, responsibility is also losing out, because there's something that comes out of you that helps you to maintain a certain level of sanity when you play that role for that child you brought to earth. So that's my perspective to it.
Yeah, well, that's something deep there to think about. It's not just about position. It's not about title. It's not about claiming, well, I'm a father, but responsibility, influence, which we're going to talk a lot more tonight. And there are lots of men out there today who call themselves fathers, but have not taking on that full responsibility of what it means to be a father. And for those of you who wouldn't know, I was born into a polygamous home. Ugo knows this, and
Yes.
my father comes visiting, and he was never hardly ever around. And my mom, like Dineo was talking about, the single mom is just like having a mother who plays the role of a man and a woman, and and most of the influence came through that woman. And but we're going to unpack this a little bit as we go. So, Pastor Fall, I don't know if you have anything to add to this. A father.
Thank you very much once again. I mean, the summary, agreeing with Dr. Adura, Dineo, and Ugo, clearly, the father is not a title, it's a responsibility. And from what Dineo said before, there's something that Jesus came to reveal. He brought a relationship, something that wasn't really clear to the human race before Christ came. He brought the revelation of God as Father. And the religious leaders and the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Jews struggled with that then. So who's the Father? And, just looking at that word father that Jesus actually used, because I think the topic really is about fathers as influencers, which, like you said, we'll go deeper into. There was a statement Jesus made. It's in John chapter 8 and verse 38. Now, Jesus said something there. He said, I speak that which I have seen with my Father. And you do what you have seen with your father. Now, one translation, puts it in a very simple way. It says, I tell the things which I've seen, and learned at my Father's side. And your actions also reflect what you have heard and learned from your father. He was replying the people who were struggling with him bringing that concept of God as a father. And they were accusing him of blasphemy, being made equal with God. So I went to check the meaning. That word father there, it's very interesting. It summarizes most things we've said here so far. The first definition is that the father is a generator or a male ancestor. The second one, which is used like in a metaphor, is the originator, the transmitter of a thing. You see, someone who is not necessarily, like Ugo said, biologically a father, but plays a father figure, can become a father. And what does the person, someone, in that metaphor, it says someone who has infused their spirit into others. And the things they've infused in them governs the minds of the people they have.
That means there could be a spiritual dimension to fatherhood, spiritual fathers.
Definitely. And, the other definition says one who stands in a father's place and looks after another in a paternal way. It is not a title. It's a responsibility. And anyone who calls themselves a father or comes into the position or the influence of fatherhood has to see themselves from a responding, what I call the ability to respond in a fatherly way.
That's interesting. That's interesting, Pastor Fola, what you've just said. And now everything we've said, I think the connection I can make from all the comments is just that establishing that relationship between influence, which is of course a critical component of leadership, because as fathers, we're in a position of leadership. God has put us in a family, in a community, wherever we find ourselves as leaders. And that's where the influence then comes in. So we can't talk about fathers or leadership without talking about influence, because they all go hand in hand. And so coming to influence, we've alluded to this a few on some of the definitions that we've given. So what is influence then? What is influence? Like I did say, influence is big in our world today. We've got YouTube influencers. There are people these days, they haven't got a 9-to-5 job, but they're influencing thousands and millions just by posting a video. Our children are getting influenced by some of these so-called influencers. And the challenge for us as fathers is, how do we as fathers understand influence, not just in the home, in our communities, wherever God has put us. So the question is, what is influence for us? Now, I saw a picture of Pastor Fola. He sent this to me. I'm sure he didn't know I was going to bring this up. Now, Pastor Fola, when I saw this picture, I was thinking, is this what influence looks like? You can see Pastor, you can see Pastor Fola there, and trying to, I don't know whether he's trying to box his way into influence or something. Do we leverage our influence by beating people up? I don't know what's going on. Can you please explain to us what's going on in this picture before we define influence?
Oh, this is really hilarious. Thank you, Pastor. Okay. Now, let me tell you what influenced that picture. Yeah, that picture was taken on the 30th of May, 2000, in the year of the coronavirus, when we were all under lockdown. And I got one of my sons, the eldest one, Noah. I said, you know, the way we were all locked down, it was almost driving some people crazy. And just to go out and do a bit of exercise. So I remembered that, we got this for the gym we were setting up in church. I said, okay, let me just go out there and do some exercises. So I put on the boxing gloves, and that bandana on my head was influenced by my first son, because it belongs to him. He's an influencer, coincidentally, on social media. So I put that on. I said, let me just do this. And so he came and took the picture. So I wasn't trying to box my way. I was trying to box boredom.
You were so bored. Yeah.
Out of the way. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. What is influence then?
Now,
yeah.
The word influence. When you look at that metaphorical definition of what a father is, someone who actually, it's not just like, I don't want to really go spiritual on this, but it's not
very
just
practical. Yeah.
It's, someone you see doing something. And as a result of what you have seen them do, it actually either changes your own course of action or makes you act like what you have seen. Now, look at Jesus from that John chapter 8, verse 38. He makes a profound statement. He says, I speak what I have seen with my Father. So even my speech is being influenced now by what I see with my Father. My Father has influenced even the way I speak. Now, I will just say this so that I allow other people to contribute to this. Now, I was born into a family with 3 boys, and we have a younger sister. She's the only girl. Now, there's a story that I heard people say. They told us that, do we 3 boys know that we actually walk with the same swagger that our father has? I said, no. So one day, I took time. So my father was walking in front, and we were meant to follow in tow. So I stepped back, and allowed my older brother, I'm in the middle, I have an older one and a younger one. So I allowed them to follow my dad. And they were walking, and I stood and I was watching. Pastor, okay, my brothers were walking with the same
Exactly the
swagger,
same, yeah.
like my father. That's what I call influence.
Thank you. Yeah, let me go to Dr. Adura. Adura, what do you have to say to what is influence? Yeah, is it just limited to YouTube and all that? And yeah, okay.
No, that's a very interesting one. I have an example similar to that. No, fascinating question, Pastor K. For me, I would say influence is the capacity that we have to effect, to influence. No, no, don't let me use the word influence again. The capacity that we have to effect on the character, the development, the behavior, the comportment, the actions of someone else.
Yeah.
So essentially, totally aligned with what Pastor Fola had said already. That's what influence essentially is. But I can add on top of that we don't deliberately know that we are influencing people. Like
Yeah.
to effectively influence someone, you don't even need to know that you are doing it. I'm sure Pastor Fola, you working like your dad did not call you out one day to say, aha, my son, come, this is how we work, okay? Let's work this way. I'm sure he didn't do that. He just happened to be working, being himself, and unconsciously you became him. In fact, my greatest worry sometimes is you seeing your dad and assuming that I would never be like my dad. Never. And you walk gradually to become him and then become version 2.0 of him. Even more of him. Because that's how powerful influence is.
I think we are losing Adura there. Yeah, I think we're losing Adura there. Let's go to Ugo. Ugo, can you say something about this? Hopefully, we'll go back to Adura
Yes,
there. Yeah. So,
Well,
Ugo, can you? Yes.
the word influence is a very powerful concept.
Yeah.
Before I talk about it as a word, okay? There's a research that was done in the 1930s. A scientist has a 10-month-old child, and he wanted to teach a chimpanzee that is 10 months old how to become human. It's on Wikipedia. You can Google it. So they took the child. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yes, go on. Yeah, we can hear you.
He took his son was 10 months old. So he took a chimpanzee, and the name of that chimpanzee is Goa, Guo, to teach the chimpanzee how to become human. After 12 months, this Kellogg's, the scientist, his name is Kellogg's, his son, Daniel, after a few months, began to behave like a chimpanzee. But so they stopped the experiment. So first of all, influence means to change or impact the behavior or the thinking of a person.
Yeah.
To impact the behavior of the thinking of a person.
Sure.
And then it could be negative or positive. And the human mind is designed to respond to influence.
Yeah.
So influence as a concept is the ability to effect change in the human person in two levels: the way he thinks and the way he behaves.
Thinking and behavior. Yeah.
Yes. Because some people's behavior do not always reflect their thinking.
Yeah.
But once your thinking is impacted, it will definitely reflect in your behavior. So if someone's thinking has not been impacted, and you remove the object of influence, the person's behavior will still change to something else. But once the person's thinking is impacted, if you remove the object of influence, the thought remains until another object of influence comes to shift the thinking. So is first of all a concept for me in terms of understanding the dynamics of, changing people's behavior and thought process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fundamental to fatherhood. I just want to, stop here.
Yeah, it's okay because, like we said, we're going to unpack that a little bit because a lot is coming out here tonight. We lost Adura there when he was. Let's go back to him, Adura. So, can you complete what you were saying about?
Apologies.
It's all right.
Has done it. But I'm back now. I'm back now. I was just literally trying to give an example, building on what Pastor Fola had mentioned about my nephew, who is 7, and literally from birth, he's always.
And if the others can, mute themselves if they are not speaking, then that would be great. So yes, Adura, go on. Yes.
So he's always wanted to be like daddy, walk like daddy, and he made it clear to everyone in the house that when daddy is not here, I am daddy. Okay. And I behave like daddy and I act like daddy. So just literally like 2 or 3 months ago, he looked into the mirror and said, "Oh, I'm really becoming to look like daddy. I think all that is left now is for my tummy to be as big as daddy's own." And for him, that was how much he wanted to be like his daddy, act like his daddy, behave like his daddy and look like his daddy. And the point I was trying to make then was that influence doesn't have to come from something that we teach. It's just in us being ourselves, living our lives, and unconsciously, people who are looking up to us. Similar example, our children,
sure,
they become us.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Let's go to Dineo. Dineo has been quiet for a bit. So, Dineo, what do you think about influence? Yeah.
No, I completely agree with what everybody said in terms of what influence is. It's definitely influence is definitely a person or a thing that has the power to affect your decisions or actions. I mean, we can definitely see that recently when we were all watching the Euro 2020 and Ronaldo decided to shift the Coca-Cola bottle. The next day, shares fell by 1.6%.
And that was one person's action.
One person alone, that influence affected the shares of a global brand and influenced how people saw Coca-Cola and were now shifting towards being more healthy with aqua, water. So it's definitely a powerful thing in itself. But when it comes to fatherhood, it's absolutely paramount. It would imply in that regard.
Yeah. I think Ugo is raising his hand. Yeah, Ugo, do you want to add anything to that? Yeah. You can unmute yourself. Yeah.
In addition to what Dineo said, do you know there's something insidious about influence? It can even take away the object and create a condition to necessitate an action without holding an object responsible. In other words, you can influence someone by creating an environment that makes someone act in a certain way without you being seen as responsible. For instance, someone can create a condition that can make someone to become promiscuous without being the person that told the person to do. So in other words, fathers can create an enabling environment that can make people behave in certain ways without physically saying those things.
That is powerful.
So influence can come in an insidious way where one of the things you can do to influence people is create a condition to enable a particular possibility to happen without physically being the object of influence.
Wow. That's quite go on. I think you had something else too. I cut you short. But go on.
So because most of the times even the devil pretends not to be the devil.
As the Bible says, the angel of light sometimes can disguise himself.
With the things without you seeing his real nature, and you act in a certain way, thinking you're the one acting that way. That's why our fathers too, there are certain things that they do that may not be seen as dangerous, but they created the enabling environment that make people do certain things. Their sons do certain things that if you ask, but I didn't tell my son to do that. But your actions has made a suggestion Okay?
Created
Now,
an enabling environment for,
yes, environment. So it's insidious because no object is held responsible. So it's just someone that creates an atmosphere where sin can be seen as normal.
Yeah.
Where the people committing this sin do not feel the guilt of sin because someone has created an environment that makes sin. I met a child today, and this child is 12 years old. The father took me to meet the child, to talk with the child, and inspire the child. And the father talked about, is there any link between genetic codes to romance and sexuality? I said, what do you mean? Can genetic code affect someone becoming a homosexual? So, first of all, you are born a male or female. Your genetic code determines whether you're male or female. But to decide that you're no longer a male when you're a male is perversion of the concept of humanity. So, but the person may not have come to tell you that you are not a male or female, but they create suggestions, promote insinuations that can make that go to a conclusion, but they are not the one that led to that conclusion. But they created an environment for you to reach a conclusion as though it is your thought. But they suggested and created an environment that led you to that. And you won't hold them responsible because they are not the object of influence.
Well, you're bringing you're bringing a lot out there for us to go. We'll come back to some of these thoughts, and let me go back to Pastor Fola before we move on. Pastor Fola, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that concept of influence, because what we're seeing here is obvious, it's clear that influence is the power to affect others, and it could be positively or negatively, but every one of us, we've got an influence, whether we understand it, whether we see it, or whether we appreciate it or not. It's not just limited to the YouTuber that has 1,000, a million followers. We all are influencers in one form or the other, and that's been coming out in all of our discussion. So quickly, I don't know if you want to add anything before we go to how we then influence. And so, Pastor Fola, let me come back to you.
Okay, thank you for that and the contributions there. Really learning myself here. Now, in terms of influence, I know we are looking at in the context also, which I believe we are going to go into in depth, of a father. Now, we are influenced usually by what we see, primarily to start with. What we see. Now, I want to use that. I want to zero in on that. The presence or absence of a father. So, for example, a child sees the father, and they are influenced by what they see their father do. Then a child also grows up, and the father is not there. Do you know the absence of the father too influences child's action?
Yeah.
Because that can now make the child think, oh, this is what it means to be a father, not to be there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I want to rest there. Just
that's a very powerful statement that you made. Like the example I gave, being born into a kind of a home where it's like my father coming weekends and like an absent father really, and of course my mom doing all the work, both the man and the woman. And as I was growing up, I had this understanding about marriage and what marriage is. And not until I gave my heart to the Lord, I started reading the scriptures, and He painted a whole new picture of what marriage and family life, is all about. But I was influenced, my mind, my thinking, everything was conditioned as I was growing up. And sometimes it takes a lot to change the thought pattern, the processes, and the enable environment that's preconditioned us to maybe behave in a certain way or act in a certain way. Now, my father wasn't telling me anything. He wasn't telling me, when you grow up, do this or do that. But I was observing. Now, there's something a man said, and I'm going to get this out for you. His name is Charles R. Swindoll, and I love what he said. He said that the acid test of a father's leadership is not in the realm of his social skills, his public relations, his managerial abilities at the office, or how well he handles himself before the public. He says it is in the home. think about the acid test of a father's leadership is not in the realm of his social skills, because sometimes, that's what we think in the social realm and what we are doing, how we are drawing people in and getting the applause of the public. His public relations. Some are great managers. His managerial abilities at the office. He could have won so many thousands of awards. Or how well he handles himself before the public. He can put up a persona of perfection and respect, and everybody respects him. But he says it is in the home. And I think that is a powerful statement there. And so we just want to look at now how we influence. And I'm sure that we already do know this in part of our pre-discussion, understandings of things that will enable us in the development of our influence as fathers. And there are two things that we want to look at or talk about. And the first one is that when we talk of influence is essentially who we are and not what we do. And that's been coming through from everything that we are saying. Who we are, not what we do. Like Ugo said, the father may not even consciously say anything or tell his kids or his friends to do this. But there's something about who we are in ourselves. And so what I want you to do is maybe just think about that for a few seconds, or as the case may be. There's a scripture, I'm sure we are familiar with this scripture in 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 16, where Paul was instructing Timothy. And he says something to him. He says, keep a close watch on how you live and on your teaching. Now, the interesting thing about that verse of scripture is that Paul is more concerned with Timothy's life than with his teaching. And I was thinking, I said, why is that? He says, keep a close watch on how you live before he even starts talking about his teaching. So there's something about influence being about who we are and not just what we do. So I don't know if you can maybe cite examples or buttress this point that influence is more about who we are than what we do. I don't know, Ugo, do you want to come in there before we look at the second area of how we influence others, of who we are? You need to unmute yourself. You're muted.
Can you do it for me?
Yeah, you're muted. You're muted now, so you can go on here.
Okay, so who we are, underscores our identity. Our identity is what scores who we are. And what is identity? Identity is what you are the same with. If I say Okechukwu, I will say Okechukwu who? Okechukwu Unadike. So I'm trying to find your identity. I've heard your first name. I want to attach another substance to that thing. So who we are is the values that we live by. It is our creed, our philosophy that now reflects in our actions. Not so much in our teachings, because people can say things that they don't do. Because language is another manipulative deception. It's a deceptive tool too. People can manipulate people by language. But who you are will reflect in your character, even when you're least expecting it. So identity has to do with what substance you associate yourself with in terms of the core values, your belief system. It will always give you a way, even in the most unguarded times. So I strongly believe that is true. Influence is much more about who we are than what we do.
All right, Dr. Adura, do you want to say anything there? Do you agree or do you disagree?
No,
Influence
totally
being
agree.
about who we are.
Totally agree. I think we cannot act like an influencer. We can only be an influencer. You can't pretend to be who you are not. You cannot suddenly act like, okay, I need to influence my child on how to eat healthy. I need to influence my child on how to exercise properly. Like Pastor Fola with his gloves. I don't think you are pretending to be with those boxing gloves. That's probably who you are. Fitness, and then your son is looking at you and like, okay, I need to be fit because daddy is doing this thing. A way of life. That's my first point. We cannot act it. We can only be it. And I really think in the context of where we live now, I mean, the times in which we live in, I don't know. I think the children, being born these days, they are totally different.
Yeah.
They would ask questions. They would query, why do we do this? They
Yeah.
would they would challenge status quo. Would challenge even principles, established principles.
Yeah.
Tell me why we need to do this. If we do that based on something that we are not, if we do what the things that we're trying to behaviors that we're trying to influence based on an act, based on a drama, based on a theatrical,
Yeah.
put together show, there is no way we're going to influence. So first things first is, and I know we're coming to the question of how we influence. I think it's certainly first of all us recognizing
Yeah.
who we are.
Yeah.
You cannot influence who by being who you are not.
Yeah.
It starts from you as the father recognizing who you are, and also, frankly, also recognizing your weaknesses. You know, uh, you know, tr- yes, and Dineo, I know you give the example of Cristiano Ronaldo moving the coke, away. That comes from him not drinking coke. If you drink coke, you like coke, you won't move it away. You'll be like, you get my point. So I think it comes from you recognizing first of all what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are,
Yeah.
and really asking God to help you with those weaknesses
Yeah.
so that you can influence the next generation over.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Dineo, do you want to chip in there of who we are?
Yeah.
Influence being more of who we are and not what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be honest, I struggled with this one, and I'm still struggling with it now. I think I think they're so interconnected. Like, who you are is reflected in how you are. I mean, for example, if we're talking about fatherhood, my stepfather, who's been with me since I was aged 4, there was a moment in time point in time when my stepsister was going through such a hard time in life, and she was all the way across the world. She was in Asia, and my father brought a ticket just to pick her up in Asia at the airport to bring her back home. For me, that action alone exposed who my stepfather was, my adopted father was. He was a father that would go like over and beyond. So I struggle to separate the two. I think the two are so intertwined. I think in order for me to have seen who my stepfather, who truly he was, I had to have seen the action that he did
Yeah.
to understand the man that he was. So
Exactly.
I struggle to see the two.
So exactly. So sometimes you can't really separate that because the action sometimes can be born out of who we are. And there are other times when some people have possibly perfected the act of separating their actions from, and you remember this is the problem Jesus had with the Pharisees. He says they say and they do not. So they have perfected the act of deception. But for us, our actions, everything we do, essentially can be traced back to who we are. Just like out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. But there are people who can separate what they've got in their heart from what's coming also out of their mouth. So I think you're absolutely right that sometimes you may not be able fully to separate the two. And at other times, that's just what it is. Influence is, first of all, who you are and not what you do. But what you do will always point back to who you are. Jesus said, by their fruit we shall know them. We see what comes out of you. And it actually points back essentially to who you are, the kind of person that's speaking, and very important. All right, that's great. But let's look at the second thing there, which is on how we influence. So we've looked at it's not just about who we are, but also influence being a choice. Now, this is a very good one. Influence is a choice, not something that happens by chance. Every single day of your life and my life, we make decisions, we make choices, and sometimes we underrate the value or the power of the decisions and the choices that we make. But when you look at the life of influencers, you'll notice that most of them are quite intentional in their ability to influence. Thank God for what Ugo said about unconscious influence. Yes, it could be positive, it could be negative. but we're talking about a lasting influence, an intentional level of influence that can touch the lives of people. And so I don't know what you want to say to that. We're going to look at an example actually from the Bible in the life of Daniel, a man who was in captivity, and he influenced the people and a whole nation. And you wonder, how did he do it? And that's why we are looking at influence being a choice, not just something that happens by chance. I've got children, 2 boys, and I know they are watching. And there are things that I do intentionally. It's like discipleship, what I call intentional discipleship. You know what you want somebody to become, and you're carefully channeling all your energy, you're channeling all your resources, everything to make sure that they get the message, they see the picture. The example that Dineo gave, the Coca-Cola putting the bottles there, that is influence. There's something they're trying to do. They're intentional. And in their approach, someone actually put it this way, that if we don't influence our children, somebody else will do it for us. So it's got to be intentional in what we do. So I don't know if anyone has got something. Let me start with Ugo there. Ugo, what do you think about influence being intentional and not just something that happens by chance?
Yeah, I agree with you on the choices we make also impact the outcome we receive.
Yeah.
However, the intentionality, the weight of the intentionality has to do with the character you display. Because if you intend it and you don't consistently act in that intention, that intention can be punctuated. It will lose its integrity to actually influence. But I have a caveat with some cases. There is a case study of a Harvard graduate who is a professor, and his father was a drunk and a criminal, and he died on death row in America. So they met the man's son, one of the man's son, who was also died on death row. And this boy, when the journalist came to the boy and said, how come you ended up as a criminal? He said, look at my father. He's the influence. So the journalist got to meet another of the same man's, another son of the same man, who became a professor in Harvard, and asked the man, how come your father died as a criminal on death row and you became a professor? He said, look at my father. That's not the place to follow. So the man became an example not to follow. So it's dynamic though.
Yeah.
I don't know, but if you intentionally start it, it's a better power when your actions is backed by intention.
Yeah.
Because that will help you to hold yourself in restraint and not to, add to the negative influences that's already trying to reduce your power of influence.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Thank you so much for that. And Adura, I don't know if you've got anything to say. Choices, influence, maybe what you make of the idea of not living our lives by chance, but being intentional. You've got 2 kids. I don't know what that means for you as a father, being intentional. Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking notes as this is going on.
I'm taking notes.
My brother just joined as one of the viewers. Nice. Choices, chance. I think let's first start with the chance first. And I'm sorry I'm taking us back here, but I think it's really important to kind of recognize that a lot of people who influence, fathers who influence, really kind of did it out of chance. Think about how, where many of us come from in Africa, where there's a definition of how a father should be. Sit on the floor, watch TV, have food brought to you, complain about the food, whether it's tasty or not, yet you have the biggest portion of the chicken or the meat or everything. That's what was sold to us. And I remember growing up, I could not wait to become a dad. Like, if this is what you get by becoming a father, let's do it. I want to be a dad.
Who wouldn't want to be served?
I want to get this, but I don't think my dad was doing that intentionally to influence me, but by chance, it happened that he was doing that. there is also the other side of those who do it intentionally. And I think more than ever before, in these times when we live and the children that we're raising, we just have to be intentional. I feel like when I was growing up, there was a clear distinction between good and evil.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you're right.
now it's kind of blurred, like, what's
We're
gonna,
not sure anymore.
like you can make an intellectual argument for evil being good now. I mean, that's how these
Sure.
kids are. And I feel if we try to raise children as fathers by chance because it kind of worked for us, and going back to what Ugo mentioned, that yes, there is negative, that you could influence, you could actually inspire a child not to be like that because you got it wrong. I feel like the days of those have kind of gone past us right now. I feel like now, if you really want your child and you want them to kind of grow in the way that you understand as the right way, in that way of righteousness that we
And the
talked
way you
about,
see the world and what the world, yeah.
we just have to be intentional. It cannot happen by chance anymore, because guess what? The forces that we're dealing with are intentional about
Yeah,
influencing that.
yeah.
They are not messing around. They are
That's
not
true.
just
That's
sitting
true.
down on the couch, just sitting on the, the example I gave of my dad. They're not just doing that.
Yeah.
They are targeting ads on YouTube. They are targeting ads on Facebook. They are changing laws in senates, in House of Assemblies, focused on your child, focused on our children. And the only way we can win that battle is to be deliberate about it.
Yeah.
And like I was building on earlier on, yes, there are roles that have been assigned to men. Men are providers, men are partners, men are parents, but men are also priests. And in being a priest, you have to come from a clear understanding
Yeah.
of where, of your relationship with God. You have to
Yeah.
come a clear understanding of what God's word says, so that you can have that conversation. Shut the Bible.
Yep.
Let's have a conversation on the same level that you get it. You want to have a logical conversation about creation? Let's go there. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I will tell you why creation is real and it's not evolution.
Yeah.
You want to have a conversation about, why you need to dress up properly, why you need to serve God. Let's talk about it. I'll
Yeah.
tell you why.
That is
Okay?
being
But
intentional as well. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But also see the way I've lived my life. I have examples to tell you.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm not just telling you to do it. I'm not, Pastor, do as I say, but don't do as I do.
Yeah.
I can give you examples. Here they are. My son, listen to me. I think I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, I think you've said a lot then. Pastor Fowler, intention. You've got two boys. I think your eldest is how old now? Your
He's
your
22 years old.
22.
He's the one
So
the
I
one
think you should
influencing
know a
me.
lot. The one influenced you. I think you should know a lot about influence being intentional. What do you have to say to that, Pastor Fowler?
Now, just to kind of balance things, not bringing us back about what we were discussing earlier about who we are, what we do. That's what influences. In reality, I want to tell this story to buttress what I have to say. Right, my first son, our first son, is 22 years old. Now, some years ago, when it was roughly about, I would say 8, 9, we sat down one day and we were watching a movie. It was a Christian movie, and it was a pastor and his family. So they showed the pastor on the pulpit, heavily anointed. We prayed. Church members were flocking. All those gymnastics. I'm a pastor, so I'm not trying to bring any pastor down.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You and I know some pastors do a lot of gymnastics.
Yeah.
He will do all that, but then they will go home. At home, he will beat up his wife, maltreat the children. And, we were just watching, and my wife and I, and my first son and the second son. And my first son made a statement. And it was around 7, 8, if I can remember. He said, "Daddy, because of course he knows I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, pastor is not a title, just like father is not a title.
Sure. Yeah. It's called responsibilities and things you do. Yeah.
I don't even usually like putting pastor when I'm introducing myself. Just see me as Fola and judge me by my character.
Yeah, sure.
By you know what you see me
Do.
my the way I relate, you know, with people. So he said, Daddy, but wait a minute. He said, you are not like that, pastor. You don't beat mommy. You don't maltreat. So he said, you are not. He in fact gave the pastor in the movie a name. We call him Mr. Slapper. You are not like Mr. Slapper. You know, he wasn't saying, you know. So that got me thinking, Pastor Okey. Wait a minute.
Wow.
There is so much I can do, and people seeing me do, and I'm getting results, influencing.
Yep.
But my real character is the ultimate influence.
Yeah.
Because people eventually will see who I really am. So, you know, you mentioned the Pharisees before. You know, it's something else they say, it's another thing they do.
Yep.
Jesus called them one name, sir. It's called hypocrites. And the word hypocrite is actually another name, and I'm not denigrating that profession, for acting.
Yeah.
You have actors who have perfected the act.
Yeah, putting on a mask. Yeah.
Yeah, they can play the role, they can get into the role, they play like it's real, but that's not really who they are. So we can act, we can do, we can be intentional, all we want, but our real character is the real influence. That's why you see people fall from a height, a pedestal.
Yeah.
That people have seen them because of a moral failure. Suddenly the person that everybody's following, they just found out he did something.
Yeah.
I mean, something revealed about their lives.
Yeah.
So being intentional, I think the real intention for me, when I began to look at my life is, you know what? I must model real character to my children. Not necessarily what I do, but who I really am before them. How do I treat their mom? How do I treat even the church members?
Yeah.
Now, you and I, as pastors, we have also have you know, the privilege to pastor other pastors' children.
Yeah, sure.
And I will tell you one thing. I struggle with. The people my wife and I have struggled with pastoring are pastors' children. Why? One said to us one day, I see my parents in church, but I see another set of people at home.
At home.
He said the moment we enter the car, I see the way they even talk about people, the way they talk about church people,
the
way they talk about church, you know, and that discourages them. The next thing they leave home, they don't want to have anything to do with church anymore.
Wow.
So what is really what we should be intentional about?
It's
who we are, our character. Like, you know, Adura said, you know, these are my weaknesses. This is help me. I need help here. This is the real me. You know, there's a proverb from the part of Nigeria I'm from. They say that your character is like smoke. You can cover the smoke all you want. Cover it, do everything. It will find a way.
Well,
just come out.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, balancing things and going back to Jesus. He said that same scripture, because it's something that I took time to really focus on. That John chapter 8 verse 38. He said, I speak. You know, one version says, I tell things which I have seen and learned at my Father's side. And your actions, he was telling the Jews, also reflect what you have heard and learned from your father.
Yeah.
So who is the father? What is the father like? You see, just to separate the two, our character is our values, our beliefs, the way we learn, think, that influences our choices. That's our character.
Yeah, the choice. Yeah.
You know, profession is, yeah, I'm an engineer, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a professor of anatomics, I'm this. That's what you do. But that's not really who you are. The real
Exactly.
influence
Yeah.
is the character.
Yeah.
So we should be intentional about what we are becoming,
Yeah. Yeah.
not just what we are doing.
I mean, it's great that all this is coming out. So much to take in. You know, we're looking at right choices, positive corresponding action. You know, enhancing our ability to influence others. Now, going back to as we start tying things together to round up here, I did give us an example of Daniel. You know, from the Bible, and when you look at the life of Daniel, you could see the way Daniel influenced his generation, and it's amazing because there are things that come through in some of the scriptures that I've got here. He was a man that influenced through consistency in the way he lived his life. When the law was given, Daniel was still praying. He never changed. He was consistent. And I think Ugo raised that question of consistency in the way we do things. It's not just that you've done it today, you did it tomorrow, but how consistent are you? And influencers, that's one thing they do. Even the so-called YouTube influencers and all of that, they are consistent in putting out their, what do you call it, videos, their everything. They are consistent. And very important, again, we see Daniel, he influenced also through his spiritual life. Very important. We've talked a little bit about that, you know, how we leverage our influence through our spiritual life. And Daniel, for him, that was very important. We also see with the life of Daniel, how he also influenced through hope, by giving hope to the king. When he was about to be thrown into the lion's den, the king looked at him, and because he knew the kind of person that Daniel was, he actually said to him, says, like, the God you serve will rescue you or will save you. So he gave the man some kind of a hope that this God that you've been faithful to, you've prayed to, will never let you down. And if you look at almost all influencers who are intentional in what they do, it's all about creating hope, giving people that sense of becoming something that they want them to aspire to become. Going back to the example of my dad, of course, who, like I said, he comes in and he goes. But there was something about him that I noticed as well. And that was, he had this sense of belief. He instilled it in us. You can become who you want to become. There's something. And that kind of created hope in us that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter the family you were born into. But there's something that you can actually become. And we see all this in the life of Daniel, you know, consistency in his living, his ability to influence through his spiritual life, hope, giving hope to people. And I think that as fathers, it's something that we need to start taking seriously. But there's another dimension to this. And when we look at the life of real influencers, there are four things, and maybe feel free to speak on any one of these. And it's been said that influencers are always generous with what they have. Not only being generous with what they have, influencers also, they believe the best for people. They encourage people, and also they invest themselves in others. It's like they're pouring out themselves into people. Now we are talking about being intentional. We're not just talking about something that happens by chance. And when we look at the life of Daniel, this wasn't happening by chance. Daniel was also intentional about his spirituality. He was intentional about hope. He was intentional about the consistent way that he lived his life. I'm going to go back to Ugo before I go to Adura. Think about these things, you know, being generous with what they have, believing the best of people, encouraging people, investing themselves in others. Which one of these would you see as a powerful tool in the life of fathers as influencers?
All awesome, but they underscore the concept of generosity. I think the prodigal son was able to come back after he squandered everything he had. because he believed in the generosity of his father to welcome him back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if he had, because when he left, and squandered everything he had, there's something the Bible says that before he ate with the pigs, he has lost everything. He has spent everything, and what was remaining was to eat with the pigs. When he got to that point where he's about to eat with the pigs, he remembered he came of a wealthy family.
Yeah.
That identity that he came of a place where there is more, that changed his mind to go back, knowing that his father will always receive him back. So I think the act of being generous, to support, to listen, to forgive, to counsel, to love, creates an environment to make you to be a place somebody can run back to, no matter how difficult or bad they are.
Yeah.
That is fundamental to fatherhood.
Thank you so much for that. I don't know, Adura, what do you want to say to that? Generosity, believing the best of people, encouraging people, investing themselves in other people. I don't know which one stands out for you as a father, talking about influence.
Yeah. Thank you. For me, it's number 4, investing in others. I think on the and this is by no means trying to suggest that the other ones are not particularly important. They are. But I think investing themselves in others is exactly what we can do to be deliberate about influencing people. I mean, you might not have a lot, you might be a dad who really, you're just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, living from
But you
hand
can
to
still-
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can still invest your time. My dad did it. Like my dad was not perfect, and I don't think anyone's dad is or was perfect. But one thing I know my dad did, he taught me mathematics. He did. You know, Saturday, Sundays, we were on the blackboard. He was a medical doctor, but he was there investing his time teaching me. And I say again that my dad was not perfect. He was deliberate about investing his time,
Yeah.
giving of his time, you know, um, to me,
Yeah.
as a father, and I think that's something that we can do deliberately. And I hope we'll get a chance to kind of talk about the other things. Because I remember Pastor Fala was trying to give a balanced conversation around this, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, even in trying to invest ourselves
Yeah.
in our children, there are competing interests, Pastor. Okay,
Yeah.
you still have to work. You still have to be provider.
Yeah.
You still have to, like me, drive 3 hours to university to go teach, and then come back, and then somebody's bringing an assignment, and you're like, oh my goodness,
Not again.
or not again, or you still have to pick some character, and you're like, no, this child, I cannot let this slide.
Yeah.
My child just displayed a character that I need to intentionally
Correct.
modulate right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But you're tired. You are drained. You have your own pressures from work. But by investing yourself in them,
Yeah.
even in fatigue, you are intentional, in influencing them.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can do irrespective of those pressures, irrespective of the other things that we have to deal with, irrespective of, frankly, our health.
Yeah.
There are fathers, who are dealing with their own health conditions also.
Yeah.
Still, one thing they can still try to give
Is of themselves.
themselves.
Yeah. It's amazing you said this, because I put this up on one of my posts, and it was a quote by a man known as Neil C. Strait, and he says the best gift a father can give to his son is the gift of himself. So it's like just you're saying exactly the same thing I was saying this morning. He said himself, his time, and he says for material things mean little if there is not someone to share them with. Now think about that for a second. The best gift a father can give to his son is the gift of himself. And sometimes that's where some fathers fail, because they never took that time out to invest themselves in their children, in the next generation. And so it's good that you picked on that. Yes, Ugo, and then I'll go to Dineo. Yeah, Ugo, you wanted to say something on there as well. I think you're muted. I'll need to unmute you. Yeah, that's all right. I'll do that for you.
In addition to that, there are so many people that have a lot of time. They are with their children, but it's not value oriented.
So it's not just hanging around them.
Yes, you have you play, you do all those things, but you're not sending any value. So it's not a value-based relationship. But you're always there.
Yeah.
You're always at home. So that consistency has to do with the content and the quality of the relationship. So some people may not be always there, but the few times we are there, they made indelible mark in the life of those children.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's why it's good to have different minds coming on as well. The value of invested time, but what kind of time? What's the value in that time? And we know there are fathers who just lazy around and do nothing basically. So it's not just I stayed from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock with my children, but what are you investing? What is the value in the time that you're investing? I mean, that is absolutely brilliant to go. Thank you for that, and thank you, Adura. So, Dineo, what do you?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is just a very practical example of what.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to be adopting you. Sorry, as my father now. After this call, if it's okay, if it can work the other way around. No, just trying to make it practical. There are fathers and frankly maybe parents who spend time, invest their time, but you know what the child is doing while they're together? They're on YouTube watching videos from morning till night. While they're just chilling, just do whatever you want to do. I'm with the child,
and they're there. Yeah.
And they're there, but nothing. Wow, thank you very much. I just wanted to drop that in just to make it as real as possible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so Dineo, what do you have to say? Which one is generosity, believing in the best, encouraging, and investing? Which one is stands out for you?
Oh, wow. The top is investing your time in being who you are. I think I have two examples here of myself. I've recently, having spent lockdown working from home, I've lost the distinction between family life and work life. So as you were saying, I'm with my son, but I'm on my laptop. So I'm there, but I'm not present. Okay? So
there, but not present.
I'm not. I'm there. He's there. He's playing and stuff, and I'm like, okay. So I've had to deliberately make changes to move the office to an office in town.
And I remember you telling me that. Yeah, I remember you telling me that, and I was wondering, why are you doing this? Yeah.
So I completely agree with that. And also my son, this morning we were writing in his dad's card in terms of what he appreciates about his dad. And all things he put in there basically was, you play with me. I love the fact that you play with me. I love the fact that you take me to the park. I love the fact that you make me laugh. And I love the fact that you are there for me.
Yeah.
None of those things spoke about materialistic stuff. It was all relational.
Relational.
Absolutely. So I absolutely agree with everybody that it is about being there and offering your whole entire being to our kids and being present, not just being there physically, but being present there and mentally, emotionally, and all sorts.
So. Well, I think that's a challenge for us because, sometimes we can be so drained as fathers. And we thank God for Nintendo. They can play that for hours while I can. I think there's a lot to take in from there. For those of us who do a lot of home teaching, even after when my kids come back from school, homework and all of that, and weekends we try to teach them. We've got materials just to. It's not just like you said. It's not just being there, but actually being present and doing exactly what we should be doing as a father. I mean, this is a great challenge for every one of us, and I'm so happy these things are coming out. Pastor Fola, I think for you, which one stands out for you in all of these?
I mean, everything stands out. Like I said, my notes here, I'm taking notes, I'm learning from everyone. Thank you very much.
It seems we're all learning. Yeah.
Now, you see, it goes back again to what Jesus was trying to help us to understand what a father is.
Yeah.
And like I said, looking at the definition, really, at the end of the day, you see, that this definition that says that a father or a father figure is one who has infused their own spirit into someone else, into others, and what you've infused in them governs their minds. At the end of the day, like, everyone has rightly said, Ugo and, the very good example Dineo gave. At the end of the day, it's not being there. What's the quality? Because at the end of the day, what you are actually passing on to that child is your spirit. It's your spirit.
Yeah.
It's the sort of character that you are.
The essence of who you are. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I want to give an example because as Adura was talking, that one thing his father taught him maths. And I'm not sure, maybe he went on to like maths. Okay. Now, let me use the example of my own father. My own father was a lecturer in the university, and then he went to a polytechnic. He was a lecturer, and his area of specialty was biology. Now, I would say this, and I'm learning from that, because now my son's 22, 18, I am seeing something that's making me to be careful. Now, anytime my dad wants to teach me biology, I don't want him to teach me.
And the reason?
I was failing biology, mind you. But I don't want him to teach me. He would teach my brother, he would sit down, he would listen, but I wouldn't. And I think it just bothered on maybe the sort of character I was. And that's where the understanding must come in. You've got to sit down to understand your child. As a teacher, there's something I've learned, qualifying as a teacher. Children have different learning styles. There are those, they just have to see. Once they see their visual learners, they will learn. They will get it. There are those, you say, they are auditory learners. They get it. But there are those, you can say it, you can do it. I mean, you can say it, you can show them.
And they still wouldn't.
Yet, they wouldn't. Those ones, they learn by allowing them to do things for themselves. They are kinesthetic learners. They learn by doing, but they have to probably repeatedly. So my dad would want me to sit down, and he would teach me biology. So I think after a while he gave up. Now let me say this, and I'll jump into what I wanted to say. Do you know I realized almost the same thing with my two sons? When I want to now sit them down and teach them, no. And that triggers something in me. I remember, is this, am I reaping now what I have sowed? But let me tell you what changed. My dad left me, and one day, this is all he said: I teach other people's children biology. I am a lecturer of biology. I think it's a shame that my own son is failing biology. That's okay. That is all my dad said. Do you know what I did? I picked up biology and I started studying biology, because now I found out I'm a kinesthetic learner. You're trying to sit me down and teach me like you teach my younger brother.
That's not going to work here.
I found out now that my own two sons are along that line too. They do.
Yeah.
That, but in varying degrees. Now, what I'm just trying to wrap up, with this is that we need, number one, as fathers, to understand the best way we can influence the child. It's not one size
Fits all.
And the quality time we're talking about should be spent understanding the child.
Yeah.
So that you can know the best way too. And that is the real quality.
Yeah.
That now you can offer that quality. That's all my dad said.
Yeah.
Now, do you know the real influence I would say my father eventually had on me? I looked back one day, I mean many years after, and I found out today I am a teacher. That was his spirit.
Yeah.
Eventually, that he has infused in me. I watched the way my dad will explain things. He will repeat himself. He will come back. He will talk slowly. He will emphasize.
Yeah.
I end up being a teacher in academics and a teacher of the Word of God. I want to sit down and break the Bible and make it as simple, as possible to people. That was the spirit eventually my dad infused to me. Now, the book I said I'm writing, which all of you are going to buy.
I think we should get it for free because we're the first two on here to hear.
We have been influenced by it.
Oh yes, we've been influenced by. Yeah.
Now, the book just bothers on what I've seen of my father, how he brought us up as a father in his own humanity, in his own weaknesses. And what I see, comparing it to the model of God. So this is what I learned from my father, and this is what Jesus said fathers should teach. So both the good, the bad, everything. Because there's something Adura said at the start. I think he said it, but please pardon me if it's not him that actually said it. He said something along the lines of, some people start up, no, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be like my father. And they end up being like their father. It's the spirit, your spirit, that eventually you infuse in the person you are trying to influence. But try to understand the best way for that child. I have two sons. I realize one thing: they are individuals, unique, original. By themselves, and I will never make the mistake to compare them. Let me round up with what a teacher once said to me. The teacher taught me in primary school and happened to teach my younger brother. So she taught my younger brother is just a year old. I don't know if he's listening online now. It's just a year between us. So she happened to, first of all, teach my younger brother in a class lower, I think a primary 2 class, and ended up teaching me in primary 4 the following year. So she taught my brother first and taught me after, because she was moved to a higher class to teach. She was always saying one thing, and that is one thing I took that as a teacher and as a father today I will never do. She was always comparing me to my younger brother. And that had not a good effect.
Negative,
Negative. Every child is unique
and different.
To be understood in their uniqueness, and that's the best way we can influence.
Well, I'm sure Dineo will agree with that. She's got 2 kids, and sometimes in my conversation I can see that coming through, how different the first one is from the second one, and I'm sure you're taking a lot from what we've just talked about here. All right, well, there's a lot we can talk about, but I think we need to close this meeting. Hopefully there should be a part 2 of this discussion, because I'm sure that as fathers there's so much we can share with one another and so much we can pass on as well. So the final advice then, I don't know if I will start with Adura here and then we go around. If we were just to give one final advice to fathers, what will that advice be? Because we are looking now at fathers on how we can leverage our influence in our families, communities, and the church, how we can also shield our families from negative influence. It's all around us. It's all over the place. It's becoming a battle. Someone actually put it this way, that our children cannot exist in a vacuum. Something will always fill that space, and that's the truth. So I'm going to ask, well, let me start with Dineo, and then we'll go back to Adura. Dineo, one last advice you have for fathers.
Fathers,
Do you want to
yes.
knock them over the head, or you've got what do you want to say to fathers?
No, we love fathers. I love fathers. I just wanted to say, just give yourself, give the very best that you can. Don't worry about, because influence is it can be so overwhelming sometimes. Am I doing the right, the wrong thing? But if you just try and give your best of who you are, that alone is so powerful. So yes, definitely give the best.
Give the best of who you are.
Yeah.
All right, Adura, what final advice you have for fathers and men?
First, appreciation to Dineo, just to say that it's so lovely to have women joining conversations on men. Honestly, I hope you kind of influence other women to get on board, because I think men really need to hear from women.
Yeah.
A, that they are doing well where they are doing well,
Yeah.
but also B, that they're doing it as they should have to do it. Okay, I think it's really helpful. So wait, just wanted to drop that out of there. Final advice, I think it's just for fathers to recognize that effective influence is time limited.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking about influence generally, and you
Yeah.
could do this over, but to be very effective with it, it is time limited. There is only a certain period of time where someone, and I think Ugo kind of mentioned this briefly, where you have this child, unbiased, can't be bothered about anything, and if you say stop, they stop, sit, they sit, stand, they stand.
They're like a blank
At
slate. Yeah, you can write anything you want
Exactly.
on them. Yeah.
At some point in time, they're going to challenge you, and at some point in time, they're going to start questioning you. It's better to strike while the metal is still
So
hot.
hot. Yeah.
There is, stop procrastinating and thinking that right now what you need to be doing is to be father the provider. Oh, I'm busy working. Oh, I just need to work. By the time my hustle is complete, then I will start influencing the boys. The train would have gone past London Euston by that time, So strike while it's hot. Effective influence is time limited, and we really need to do it while we can. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Pastor Fola, and then I'll go. Pastor Fola, one last advice for fathers as influencers. I think you're muted, if I'm right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will end with this statement that the Father said of Jesus. Said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." One of the things I realized when the Father said this about Jesus, he never said it after Jesus had healed the sick, raised the dead.
Wow.
Jesus was 30 years old. He came to Jordan River to be baptized. So the Father was not commending him for raising the dead or doing all those actions.
Yeah.
That got me curious. And I went to try to study, look into the scriptures.
Yeah.
Why was the Father pleased with the Son? And I realized that Jesus, from a child, he grew up in wisdom, physically in stature, and then in favor with God, with man. At the age of 12, he was exhibiting a lot of wisdom for a 12-year-old. But then when the parents came to him, we've been looking for you. We know that story. It's in the Bible. And he said something, should I not go about my
Father's business?
I mean, the father figure in his life then was a Joseph.
Yeah.
But that child was introduced to that dimension of who a true and real father is. You see, it's a child we can train.
Yeah.
Just like Adura said, there's that window once it goes. But a child is different from a son. The Father said, my beloved son. He didn't say my beloved child.
Mm.
So I realized that what the Father must have been pleased with was the sort of character Jesus had become.
Mm.
It wasn't the miracles he was performing.
Mm.
And if you look at it, Jesus actually worked and served as a carpenter. Joseph, the father figure in his life, was a carpenter. At that 12, when he followed them, I mean, when they found him in the temple after looking for him for 3 days, the Bible said he followed Joseph and Mary back home. And I saw something that we can miss. The Bible says, and it was subject
to them.
To them. They were there. Fathers or father figures, let's learn the best way to be visible to our children. Let's learn by their side. We want to teach them, but we have a lot to learn. I'm telling you, most of the things I'm learning now. I'm still learning. I sit down and I'm studying and watching these children. They have grown now to become men. The lockdown last year made me realize suddenly I'm actually living with men in my house.
Not boys. Not boys.
Not boys. So I'm sitting there and learning from, why do you do these things? Why? So they're telling me, because there are so many things competing with these children. There are many things influencing them. So I'm learning. I'm interested, and I'm looking for the best way to be visible.
Wow.
And most especially, it is my spirit at the end of the day, my character, who I am, that will influence them more than what I'm saying or doing.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pastor Fola. And Ugo, one last advice for fathers. I think you're muted. I'll unmute you. All right. Go on. You're muted now. That's great.
It's been a rich evening. It's been one of the best days of my life in 2021. Thank you, Pastor Fola. Thank you, Dr. Banke. Thank you, Dineo. Thank you. Thank you for this privilege to meet this wonderful gentleman and lady. I have so much to say because of what I've learned today. My final advice is, the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, it says, "For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given." So you don't give birth to a son. As a matter of fact, son is not a gender of male and female. You give back to a child as male or female, you raise a son. So which means sonship is about building the character of the child. So which means a lady can be a son if he has the character to take responsibility. And that's why you give instructions to a child, you give responsibility to a son. So what that means is, he says, unto this son, the government will be on his shoulders. So the Hebrew word for son is builder. The child means teachable. Child is teachability. Now, when Jesus said to the disciples in Matthew chapter 18, verse 3, he says, when they ask him, the adults, disciples asked Jesus, who shall be the greatest in the kingdom of God? Jesus called up a child. So the question was by an adult. The illustration was to show child. He said, unless you are converted as a child. And I'm asking, how can an adult become a child? He said, unless you're teachable, you cannot be transformed. So I think the child is the parent of the father and mother. In other words, you are raising your own father, because when you're old, they become the people that make decisions for your life. So fathers, don't neglect your responsibility because you're creating your own monster or your own angel.
Whoa.
Also, in my case, we call it return on investment. So I see.
Oh my word. I think
we are raising our own parents. When you're now old, you can't take decisions. They'll be the one that will tell you, don't take that, get up. At that time, you're going to reap what you've sown.
Yeah.
So therefore, we are raising our own father
mm, mm,
in the form of children.
yeah.
And a son is not a male or female. It's any child that is built with the character to take responsibility.
Wow. It's amazing what you just said now, because, as a pastor, I've got taken loads of funerals. And one thing that really strikes me is, gets my attention is, like you said, when you see children making decisions now for their elderly parents, where do we put them? What kind of a home? What would this look like? And all of that. And I once visited a man, and we sat down together and talking, and I could feel his pain. And he said to me, and he's elderly, he said, my son doesn't want to know me anymore. I said, he grew up in your house? And he told me the story. It was a heartbreaking story. He said when his wife died, he never showed up. And he was so sad. And he said, and I'm sure when I die, I wouldn't see him. He said, I've come to accept it that way. And I was thinking, where did it all go wrong? It's amazing what you just said, what we are raising. And I remember then growing up, you remember those days when you come to my house and sleep over, and we do all our dance moves and all that. And I remember my mom, one day she said to me, she said, I'm not worried about who you are now. What I'm worried about is who you are becoming. And that stuck with me. Not about who you are as a child, but what you're going to become, as you say, growing up as a son. And it stayed with me all my life. And I think it's something that we have to think carefully about. And there definitely has to be a part 2 of this discussion, I'm telling you, because we've learned so much. And thank you so much, Adura. Thank you so much, Dineo. Thank you so much, Pastor Fola. And I think we all actually deserve a round of applause, if we can, for all the amazing fathers out there. we all deserve. All right. Thank you so much. And before we leave, and just to give you a quick announcement for those who worship with us on the Sunday, we are looking to go back into our church building, and they've been asking questions of what's going to happen. And I would like to let's take a few seconds ad break, and then we will all before we end the meeting.
We know things have been different this year.
It's
It's been great to meet online, but it's been hard being separated from church family, and we've missed seeing you. The good news is that the church building is open for services in person. We'd love to see our church family reunited in person, so you can be encouraged and encourage others. We're working hard to maintain a COVID-secure environment so you can come back to church with peace of mind. We look forward to seeing you at one of our in-person services soon.
All right, so that's it. And like I said, I know some churches have gone back. Pastor Fola is gone back, and we are going back this Sunday. But of course, we'll still keep our online presence. So if you've enjoyed tonight's talk meeting, it's available on Facebook. You can always go back to it and watch it. And I'm sure that some of us have shared it on our pages. You can always go back. There's so much that we can learn tonight. So once again, thank you so much. I feel like taking you all out for a meal, and I definitely owe you all one. And I just want to say from the depths of my heart, from my wife, family, church family, we do love you all, and we will see you again. And thanks for joining us today.